He'll come back for the second. India have won the test match. India have won the series. They're going to get back for two. India home. Lords goes wild.
Hello and welcome to the 81 All Out podcast. This is Siddhartha Vaidyanathan at Sidvi on Twitter. And today I'm joined by my co-host, Ashoka, who is at AB Van. Hi, Ashoka.
Hey, Sidvi. How are you doing?
Hi, good. And today we have a special guest from Bangalore. He works for ESPNcricinfo. He is a stats data analyst, really popular on social media and does some really good work for Cricinfo. Gaurav Sundararaman. Hi, Gaurav. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here. Been hearing quite a few of your episodes selectively. Some episodes are too long, but managed to hear most of them. So good stuff, some good work. It's hard to keep a cricket podcast keep going, and having weekly episodes not easy. So good stuff.
What too long, man? It is just as long as some T20 matches. What is this?
But do you have last minute drama? Can I directly go to the last over?
He's spoiled by 19.4.
16.4. Yeah, he's spoiled by the 100. So, 19.4 in terms of the
CSK.
Finish you're saying.
Yeah,
CSK. CSK. Yeah. Of course, both these guys are CSK fans. So there is a chance that this podcast may end up being a CSK podcast. We did one already, but I think I won't bet against this being a CSK podcast. But anyway, the reason why we are here together is to talk about a topic that has intrigued me for a while, actually. And I've been meaning to explore this a little more in depth. This is about the mushrooming of fantasy leagues and fantasy cricket. This has been a trend that's been going on for quite a while now. I would say even more 10 to 15 years. Ashoka can correct me if I'm wrong. But now I think the kind of popularity that these fantasy leagues have is quite immense. And, just like all other sports, cricket is also, taking big time to it. And cricket is also, I think, tailor-made for it because each one of us is a selector in our own heads anyway. And so to pick a team and then to actually see how the team performs and then to change the team gives you a little bit of, it's an empowering effect that you have, and you feel like you are actually quite smart in taking your decisions, and you have to take it's a lot of strategy. I mean, it's not just luck, it's a game of skill. I think, even the courts have declared that it is a game of skill, and that's why they allow these things to happen, because it's not just gambling. I thought I'll discuss this. Ashoka has even worked in fantasy leagues for a while. So he has been part of putting together the software for the leagues. And Gaurav, of course, is deeply clued into cricket as well as an avid fantasy league player. So, this is the topic that we have today. Before I start, let me just remind all our listeners that we are a crowdfunded platform. So you can support us at Coffee. That's ko-fi.com/81allout. You can set up a monthly sort of recurring fee, or you can put in a one-time contribution. We are really grateful for everything that you have. We have a lot of supporters now, and it'll be really great if you can help us out as well. So let's start with this topic. So, maybe we can give it a bit of context, your first encounters with this. Had you been playing fantasy leagues for a while? I think Super Selector is the very first one that I can think of that came from ESPN in the early 2000s. And of course, all other sports have been having this for a long time. So tell us a bit about that, Gaurav, and when you first got into it.
Yeah, I think you started the topic exactly what I wanted to share. Super Selectors, I think we all grew up with Super Selector in a sense that, and that time, obviously, the internet and the digital evolution also had not kicked in. So we had only very, very few games, and Super Selector with a big brand coming in, it was obviously the one which caught the eye, and they had shows on TV, which was even more exciting. That's where we kind of saw how teams were being picked, and I obviously started playing that immediately. I remember pretty clearly about that, though I don't remember the interface and all too much, but the gameplay was pretty basic. Select your best team, and you had a point system, and you used to just get some prizes and win. and we never won. So at least I never won. So, but it was good fun. It was good. It was good way to kind of test your knowledge, and there was no data revolution also that time. So it was just pick who you like and see if they perform. And you pick your favorite players, pick your favorite team players. If you had a maximum of 6 per team, I used to pick 6 for my favorite team. So that's how I started off. That was a noob playing fantasy cricket. But then most serious fantasy, if I remember, I think it started just before the IPL. I think from 2007, if I remember, Cricinfo had they were obviously the only website that time which was so big into fantasy, and Cricinfo was the platform for 5 to 6 years at least. In 2007 to 13, I don't think I played anywhere else, and the IPL helped a lot to improve fantasy also, because especially the T20 format and the fact that it was 2 months gave room to playing fantasy for a long time. Till then, the odd one day or the odd bilateral tour test series, it's not really much fun. You had only a pool of 22 to choose from, and you can't really go, and you're picking 11. So that's 50%, and almost every player will pick the big players. So basically there was not much room for differentiation. That's when T20, again, one more reason why the shorter format really helped bloom another big business, and that was fantasy cricket. And yeah, so I started off that time, and 2007 to 13, I'm sure Ashoka will also be a various part of so many leagues which we have played together. And those 2 months were amazing. World Cups we used to play, but somehow bilaterals and other tournaments I never used to play. Test series, those things never really interested me because it was of no use for the reasons I mentioned before. So yeah, so that's how I started, and now I'm still playing. I just finished 5th after being 2nd till the playoffs recently in the concluded IPL. So I finished 5th. So yeah, I don't win much, but it's great fun playing.
So you are the Rajasthan Royals of fantasy.
Okay, you can call it all the Mumbai Indians of 2021.
Yeah,
no, I'm not even close to Mumbai Indians. Yeah, I don't dominate.
No, 2000 pre-IPL is interesting that you brought up, because my very first experience of it, and probably my last experience for a long time, was the 2007 World Cup. That World Cup that went on forever and ever, and especially seemed longer because India and Pakistan went out pretty early. So you just kept watching Australia thrash the hell out of all these teams. I mean, Gaurav, I know, is an Australia fan, so he probably enjoyed
Hayden that. And Captain Hayden, you would have got
Hayden. Oh my God, Hayden was such a beast in that tournament, especially for fantasy. But I played that, and that, in fact, that World Cup, that it retained an interest for me because of that fantasy only. Otherwise, I would have got so bored of it. But because of fantasy, each game started to matter. And you actually started to, take interest in who's performing, who's not. There was this player in Sri Lanka, I don't know if you guys remember, Chamara Silva. He suddenly became like a good fantasy player in that tournament. And so I started picking him quite often. And you had to make this trump card, right, before each game. And the trump card gives you double the points and all that. So I started picking Chamara Silva for quite a few games as trump card also. But the thing with that was, I got so badly hammered that my interest towards the end then just drastically went down. Like in the first ever time you play, you get so badly hammered, you're like, oh, okay, then maybe I'm not really meant for it. So after that, I rarely played. I mean, I occasionally joined. I think Ashoka used to send me some links. I occasionally joined, but I never really made an attempt to play it. And in fact, it was only very recently that I started playing fantasy for NFL here in the US. This is the American football thing. And then it's like it becomes addictive, because I actually had some beginner's luck and started doing well. And when you start doing well, things get really addictive. Like you get deep into it and you feel like, you have to study this even more and all that. So, Ashoka, you can tell us about your early experiences.
Yeah, it's very similar to what Gaurav said, like the Super Selector, and then the legendary Cricinfo fantasy, which had like a HTML page with 2 windows on each, 2, what do you call it, list boxes.
Correct.
On
there
each
used
side.
to be an arrow which said, if you want to move the player.
You have a roster of players on your left, and then your team on the right. And then, so it was a very simple interface. But the best thing about fantasy starting in Cricinfo is that, I learned a lot of stats guruing through through the fantasy thing only, because for me now, Stats Guru feels very a normal way of interacting with cricket, simply because of fantasy, because you have to mine through a lot of data to pick players, right? And obviously, as Gaurav says, we all start as noobs. We all pick Sachin Tendulkar. And we all have picked and made him captain. In Gaurav's case, it would have been Ricky Ponting. So we will not go into that rabbit hole. But I mean, then you learn to pick players who do better, because it actually improves the way you watch cricket also, right? Because now you don't watch it from a point of view of a bat and a ball only, but also from the point of view of your team doing well. And your team is not the two teams that are playing. It is a third team that is operating outside. And you start noticing players that in a normal cricket match you won't. I mean, my favorite example is Rajat Bhatia, right? Not many people, when you talk about IPL, will talk about Rajat Bhatia. But he, for me, was a very key player, because he used to be priced at a very decent price. And you can park him in your team, and you can be sure that at least 40 to 50 points in a season per match, he will keep giving you. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. So just park him there and be, assured that points are coming. So those are the kind of things that starts creeping into your awareness as you start playing fantasy. And we have to do a small distinction here. So what we are talking about so far is called the tournament mode, which runs through a complete tournament. Right. And
let's stick to that.
Yeah. And we will. Yeah. There is this other mode called daily fantasy mode, where for every day you pick a team, where, as Gaurav said, 22 players, you pick 11. Now that has gone mainstream because of the play for money model that a lot of companies are bringing into. So now that is kind of the predominant thing in India right now. Tournament mode is for this old nerdy type. What do you call the hardcore cricket fans? Those are the guys.
Is the test cricket of fantasy.
Yeah. It is forever dying, but it is not dying, because lastly, at least 4 people.
Because of people like us.
Yeah, that is the mode that we're talking about. And even in tournament mode, Sidvi brought up a great thing, like the NFL that he's playing, that is the draft system, right? But unfortunately, that kind of system doesn't work in cricket, because you need to have a 6-month game. I mean, for like 24 weeks of game has to go on, or tournament has to go on.
And you don't have that many choice of players also, Ashok.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but you need to have that also. We don't have 8 players. 8 teams is not much.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL has 32 teams, so automatically there. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we have is, the technical term is called the salary cap fantasy, which every owner has a salary and every player is priced accordingly. And we used to do some voodoo mathematics to price those players, because I was pricing players for like around 4 years. So a little bit of mathematics go into it, and you devise point systems and you start playing. And once you start playing, it's a fun thing to host a fantasy game as well, on addition to being a player, because you get to hear a lot of abuses from. So I have been in the unfortunate position of hosting a World Cup fantasy and an IPL fantasy. So I have had the infamous, privilege of a hashtag called IPL fantasy worse than IRCTC, something like that, trending for a day because of some issues because we lock the one of the principles of the game is a team is locked when the match starts. You can't make changes to your team. So that locking, because of the traffic that IPL used to get, and it was an insane amount of traffic that IPL used to get. So sometimes the application struggles to stay up. And those times it was fun because we used to trend on Twitter.
So just curious, you say about this other daily mode, right? That people just come and they just play one game for the money. Like, what is the sort of ballpark of the kind of money we're talking about? I mean, I'm assuming it's a very high amount for like a winner of that one game, right?
Yeah, I mean, now the roof has gone up. So it used to be like, so there are, even in a daily fantasy, there are many modes. Like you can still play leagues with your friends. So that's a mini league, and it has now gone to a stage where I think Dream 11 is offering somewhere in the ballpark of crores for a mega league or whatnot.
Wow.
Yeah, and Sid, I don't think they're players who don't make one team. So they make 25 teams per match, different combinations. There are people who do that. They just make sure that in one, Kohli is the captain, one ABD is the captain, one the Padikkal is the captain, one Harshal is the captain. So you hope that, and you put 10 rupees in each. It's not too much of an investment. It's too much of an investment of time, but that's how things have returns are much more.
It naturally goes there because all these are behaviors that were seen in FanDuel and DraftKings in the US, and now that has slightly, because it's a very natural progression, right? Like if an entry fee is 10 rupees and the first prize is 1 crore, obviously if you will put in as many teams as the platform allows you to. So you will put in 15 teams if the platform allows you 15 teams. And it's just 150 rupees. I mean, for the players that are playing and the allure of 1 crore, that is, that's a good investment as per them. I don't think that it is, but
from their point of view.
From their point of view, it seems like a good investment. But it's gone crazy, huh?
I'm sure it has. It has gone really crazy, and I can see that all the rival competing companies, and in fact even Ganguly, I think even is an ambassador for one of the companies, which has been a controversy whether the BCCI president should be, pushing that and all. But okay, that's a matter for another day. But the question is, you spoke about viewing the game, right, and your approach to the game and all that. I would think that when you start playing these games and as a selector, and when you start realizing how fickle it is, like you pick a player and then he suddenly doesn't have a good day, I would think that you would be a little more empathetic towards selectors and selection in general. But I don't know if that is necessarily the case, but how has it been for you guys? How has your view of selection changed while playing this? If you can explain.
I wouldn't say I've actually never thought the way you've thought. It's not that I'm empathizing with the selector. See, this is more to do with my personal. It's a game. It's a competition, right? At the end of the day, so and the law of averages usually kind of work, especially in a league. And again, like I can talk only for World Cups and IPL. That's when the fantasy league actually makes a lot of sense to me, when like Ashoka said, the tournament mode. So when I pick a particular player, and there's a good chance that like an IPL team, I also have a core team, say 7 or 8 players usually stay the same, and we try to kind of change the other 4 or 5 players, which is what selectors also do. So when you pick 7 guys for say 14, 15 games, the chances of those 7 guys performing once or twice actually happen. So I never have thought the way you have thought. But one thing personally for me, it's how to eliminate bias and personal favoritism. That is where maybe the selectors also have this problem. That like Ashoka actually told that I would have captained Ricky Ponting. I'll tell you how I go about doing it. It's completely wrong. I've actually, even being a CSK fan, the entire league, I didn't pick Ruturaj or Faf du Plessis. I'll tell you why. Which is why I don't win fantasy tournament modes, because of such silly quirks which I have. Either I should win or CSK should win. That's how I look at it.
You bet against your hopes, basically.
End of the day, I have to win, right? This is what happens when you're like a big fan. For other matches, I don't like really bother about this kind of theory. But usually, I lost the day Ruturaj scored 100. I didn't pick him. Till that, I was actually first place in my team, and I didn't pick Rutu when he scored 100, and then I lost advantage after that. But somehow, even till date, I blindly always pick Virat Kohli, because there are days when every tournament, if you look at patterns, guys like Virat Kohli, AB de Villiers, there'll be one day when they smash and they get you a lot of points. But we don't know which of those 14 games that's going to happen. There's a pattern, for Kohli, it's usually never at the start. It's maybe after 4-5 games. So there must be a temptation to not pick Kohli initially. Similarly, Rohit, there'll be one game. ABD, there will definitely be one game. This time it was against Kolkata early on in the league. And now with Maxwell also in the same team, it's just too many people, right? So these are some of the things, these are the challenges we have. So to answer your question, so I don't worry about whether my player performed or not performed. That's as long as my so-called process is right in terms of whom I am going to be.
Your bias is right. Your bias is consistent.
So I have a lot of bias problems when it comes to fantasy cricket, which selectors will surely have. Real life selectors also, you tend to like a player, you want to give him more time. So I keep backing these players, and sometimes they just fail to. Like Kohli, this time I had him for all 14 games, and he never got me any returns. So and sometimes you lose out. There are some players who have nothing in the game, who are not very. They don't like a particular team. They're not. They know how to detach themselves from fantasy and real life. So that's something I fail to do. But a lot of players. There's one particular player I have to mention his name. His name is Anil, whom we play fantasy cricket with. In a game which people say is skill or luck or whatever, you would think that you can't be consistently winning, right? But out of the last 6 IPLs, he's won 4. So he consistently wins, and he will not lead till the halfway stage, but at the end he'll win. He in fact won this year also. So 4 out of 6 is like insane win percentage when it comes to fantasy cricket. Because you feel that you're not even playing. How can you win so much? So there is that keeps making me feel that it's not a game of luck. There's a lot of skill required. There is some strategy which works, and it works. So, so I don't feel much about selectors.
I remember someone telling me that Ashoka and Ramesh Srivats, of course, the Twitter celebrity, they used to make detailed Excel sheets and all for fantasy. Are you, Ashoka, are you still doing that?
I am not one, but there are a lot of people who do it.
Ramesh Srivats of Twitter is notorious for that. But let me tell you, even he is not exempt from quirks. So this is what happens, right? The best thing is that Champions Trophy finals, India-Pakistan, 2016-17, I think. So at that point in time, that is the final. So last match. So you're pretty much your fantasy team of 11 is going to be either 6-5 of some sort. But people wanted India to win so badly that so in the semifinals, whichever team it was, they failed to replace them with Pak team. They had Indians to the max, and then the people who have lost semifinals, whichever team lost in the semifinals, they didn't have a single Pakistani player, right? I had Fakhar Zaman, I had the necessary amount of people, right? Because I wanted to win. I was in the 3rd or 4th position, and I saw the people above me were full going India support, and this is a good opening for me to. Whoever I picked from Pakistan, it's all points that nobody is going to get. So luckily, I picked Fakhar Zaman and I made him my captain for that day. The amount of abuse that I got during that match, because we were watching in the office, was legendary, because everybody was, you're a traitor. How can you pick a Pakistani and make him captain? So that is one thing. And even during CSK matches, right? I kind of, if let's say this is an example, CSK and RCB. I don't remember Gayle whacking CSK ever, but simply because of the fact that Gayle is there, Gayle goes into the team, no question. That's the budget. That's gone, because the downside of not having a Gayle is not worth it. It's not worth the upside of not having Gayle and getting like 20-30 points extra. It is not worth it. Example is that some Pune Warriors, I think. Pune Warriors, he scores 175 of 60 balls, right?
Yeah.
So that in fantasy terms is like a landslide amount of points.
So just a story there. I wanted to also
you will not recover from that kind of a loss.
Correct. So in our league, there were like 3 guys who didn't pick Gayle that day, and they stopped playing fantasy after that. They knew there's no way coming back. Sorry.
There is literally no way, because 175 of 60 is crazy score. So those kind of people you need to have. I had that kind of thing. Like I used to always pick Yusuf Pathan. If he had a good year or a bad year, because I profited from his 100 against Mumbai. In 37 balls, he scores 100, I think, somewhere. So that was a huge upside. So those kind of players are very dangerous. And the second kind of players are your Warner, who consistently gives you points all the time, right? I don't think there is a season where Warner has not given points for anybody, except this might be the first season. Otherwise, blind pick. Warner was a blind pick. When Callis was playing IPL, he didn't have a stellar IPL stat batting or bowling wise, but simply because he opened and he obviously bowled and he took catches, he obviously will make up 70 points. So it's a safe pick for you to park him. So these are the selectorial quirks that were there. But I agree with Gaurav. You don't have to be biased. If you're biased, you're going to lose. Because I know people, I'm not going to name names, but there are people who do not like Gautam Gambhir. So they will never pick Gautam Gambhir. And Gautam Gambhir scores like tons of runs for KKR. And those are points that these people will never have. So you have to keep aside your quirks, mental quirks and mental likes and dislikes and choose it very dispassionately.
And also, like in fantasy, like as you're saying, there are certain players that are extremely vital because fantasy cricket is not just about the runs scored, but also strike rate is a huge factor in that, right? So
Yes.
the people who score like the 37 ball hundreds and all that is like a lottery right there that you can get. Or, even like I'm imagining a Sunil Narayan who bats at such a good strike rate, who always bowls 4 overs. He will also be like a big picture. I mean, are there
automatics?
Players like that, right?
Yeah. Points matter not just because of the runs scored or the wickets taken. Those matter, but the quantum of runs and the number of wickets, you add bonuses to every kind of wicket. I mean, every additional wicket, and how fast you score your runs, how many sixes you hit. If your bowler has a capability of bowling a wicket maidens in general, which I think Bhuvneshwar Kumar has done a fair bit of it. So that becomes also a decision point. So all this helps in choosing the players, just that you have to keep your quirks out of the way. I mean, that is where you trip. I think sometimes I also trip because I used to have this idiotic thing. May 2, if CSK plays, I'll pick Raina and make him batting.
On May 2nd?
On May 2nd, because I think he hit his T20 100 on May 2nd. And on May 2nd, during some 2-3 CSK matches, he has hit 40s, 50s. So I was like, okay, May 1st week, then I expanded that rule to be less crazy. May 1st week, if CSK plays, I will pick Raina.
Okay. This is now taking it into astrological zone.
Yeah. That's a quirk. That's not based on any statistical data. That's the problem that you end up having.
Apart from quirks, the other problem I have is I'm also working in the industry. I've done these kind of things with teams and stuff. So I sometimes overthink. Which also should not be, I feel it's a rule which you shouldn't follow. So a couple of things like no quirks and like Rashid Khan, what I do is when he bowls first, I don't usually pick him. The reason being, if teams lose a wicket to him, I feel that they play him out because you don't have a target in mind, right? So I feel like they play him out and he may not get wickets. Whereas if you're actually bowling, if you're chasing against Rashid Khan, and you have to chase 180, you have to attack him. The moment you attack him, you lose wickets to him. So, but I don't know if it's really true, whether that really works or not. I have not really measured it, but that's how I think. I just feel that may be because of because I've been working with players and stuff. Sometimes that kind of I say that makes me lose a lot of games in fantasy. I don't pick Rashid when they bat first. That's a problem. Similarly, pitch reading. Nobody today is able to read the right pitch. But on top of that, experts would say, usually they would say it's a good pitch for batting and stuff like that. I'll see what we have analyzed, whether it's going to be due. So I'll pick a lot of people in the chasing team. Finally, it'll be like 180 plays 110. There's no due, flat batting track. And then you can end up not picking the player. So a lot of these challenges are also there for me personally, but it may not be there for a lot of others who maybe just play for fun. So maybe that's why I don't win as consistently or finish in the top 3 as consistently as a lot of others. But slowly, this year I took it upon myself to not try to remove all these biases, but it's very hard when you're actually going at 7:30 and picking the team. All this suddenly come back to you.
Yeah, that is the thing that we have to talk about actually. So tell us a procedure as well. So you have like a general idea of the team you're going with, but then a big part of the decision comes down to the toss, right? Because obviously number 1, you get the playing 11 only at the toss, and number 2, the toss decision and the conditions, and if it's going to be a rain shortened game and all at that time. So that becomes a crucial decision time, right?
Yeah, of course. One, that is that. And secondly, in a tournament mode, since your team is just one, that you can't reset because you have only a limited amount of substitutions. So you have to see how many people to bring in. Let's say CSK plays a match on Monday and Thursday or Monday and Wednesday. You might want to bring, existing CSK play, you're sitting on Sunday. For Sunday's match, you're playing, but CSK is playing tomorrow and on a Wednesday. So you don't want to remove CSK players from your team. You want to somehow, the remaining amount of slots, you want to see which player you can remove. So that informs you that how many people you can pick, first of all. In your team today, only 1 or 2 substitutions is possible, not 3, let's say. Then comes the decision point. Okay, they are chasing, they are batting. I have only 2 options. Who do I pick out of the 22? And that is when you frantically, go to match reports. You see what has happened in the last few years of the IPL. That happens from 7 o'clock when they do the toss to 7:30. That 7 to 7:30, you have to have like lightning fingers, 20,000 tabs open before you, stats guru going crazy. And then at 7:25, you reach a decision point of 3 people and you have only 2 slots. And then should I take him or that? Do that. Keep your captain, vice captain, and the the game locks itself at 7:30. And then you have like 4 hours to regret your decisions. Like you can you can go to Twitter, you can message your friends and say, Macha, this guy must have been captain. I didn't make him captain. I didn't pick him. I thought about him, this, that, and the other. So that 7 to 7:30 is the crunch.
Worst feeling is that you captain someone at 7:29 and he's out second ball. It happened with Prithvi Shaw a couple of times last season. You just do it the first ball, he was out, and you're like, what a waste. And then that's a horrible feeling, man. That's the worst feeling. Your captain gets out within the first over, within the first 2 minutes, when you just captain him when you thought you could have captained someone else.
This is why I keep saying Rajat Bhatia, because whenever Delhi or Calcutta or wherever he has played disappoint me, he comes and gives me like that 40, 45 points. So there are some insurances you keep on the way.
And I guess many of you are playing, like you're also part of WhatsApp groups or something of the same league, right? So there'll be constant ribbing through the match as well about people who are doing well. And
it'll be unbearable. Yeah, I've been, in Twitter league. I mean, you know that, right? Like we used to have this open banter on Twitter. That is one because of all our Twitter users coming and playing. And there is school leagues and college leagues and whatnot, and other colleagues, office colleagues. So there is banter on every media. The day that you do well are you can be calm and peaceful, because then you don't have to engage in this madness. If you don't do well, that's it. That's the day you're dead. Everybody's coming for you.
Yeah.
And in WhatsApp, Sid, it's mad. And it's not like how it works for us in the different leagues we play is the moment somebody hits a 4, you won't believe the amount of jinxing he gets. Everybody will say, sure 100, sure 75, you've gone to the top, 100%. All he would have done was hit the second ball 4. He will be 4 of 3 balls. Kohli will hit a brilliant cover drive. All those with Kohli captain, wow, congrats, you've already gone to the top. I think today you will be the leader. And within like 5 overs, he'll get out, and then the eventual leader will continue to win. So it's crazy, Yeah, you're absolutely right. More than the game, it helps you watch also, get through 2 months of a league comfortably. All this really helps.
Yeah. I've actually in the NFL league that I'm playing, right? You have, it's like the app is such that it's like a stock market almost. So when the games are going on, you can actually see the green and the red going up and down depending on what they're doing, and it's quite you're just staring at that for a while and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Okay, let's just watch the match. Instead of watching the match, you're just watching what is happening to each individual player. So that is a different sort of approach to the match itself. You guys must have felt the same, right?
Yeah. But cricket actually lends itself to that. Cricket is a good game because it's a very discrete set of events, right? Like every ball, you know very clearly what the batsman is going to do, bowler is going to do, and the fielders are going to do. So there is points for every ball, and then as a discrete set of events, you can add the points up, and and you feel the pressure after as the match progresses. You know that the people that you have made captains or selected it's not working out. So the pain doesn't, I mean, if it's a good day, the joy doesn't end. But if it's a bad day, you have to wait till the last ball of the 20th over to, you should suffer till then. That's how much the suffering is.
And yeah, but that's an interesting point actually, because this whole aspect of dead match or inconsequential parts of the match, it doesn't work in fantasy because every ball is consequential.
The worst kind of points which you tend to lose or somebody else gains is these last wickets when matches is already over, like some 60 runs of 2 overs and somebody comes and gets 3 wickets when everybody's trying to hit a 6. That's like solid 150, 200 points depending on the platform you're playing and all. And suddenly you'll find that this guy has rewarded you at the end of the game when everything is over. Sometimes some players take... I remember a friend of mine picked, I think, Chris Wokes, and he took like 4 catches in the 2019 World Cup. I think it was Wokes only, if I remember right, against Pakistan or something. And he came in the end and he took a lot of catches. And just by sheer catches, you can make what hard-earned 30 is equal to 4 catches points or something like that. So it was easy pickings there. So all these random things happen in fantasy, which makes you watch till the last ball. And even if you miss it, you want to follow and see what your batter or bowler did towards the end and stuff. So, and the other thing, again, we haven't mentioned is that each site has a minimum cutoff. The strike rate points creep in only if you score 20 or only if you score 10. So you want a 20 of 8 is like a dream fantasy knock. And sometimes he gets out for 19. You'll be like, damn, one more run and then get out. Or again, reaching milestones, 25, 50, 75 is like 49 is the worst for the fantasy player because suddenly
49, 99, 50, 74.
It really doubles their points a lot if you've kept him as captain. So there are a lot of things to keep you engaged. And again, depends on the platform, what mode you're playing. This daily game is the reason it's very successful. You have instant gratification. The moment you choose the team and you choose and they score, you tend to see where you stand and you get your money immediately or whatever. So that is where those guys kind of captured the market. Whereas tournament mode is that slow death. It might take for 2 months and finally at the end of it, you start with 15 people and invariably it's only like 7 of us competing towards till the last day. There'll be people who miss on captains, people who miss days due to other commitments. So the serious players are usually just 50% or 40%.
Yeah. And the tournament mode, the good thing is if you have a bad day, you can always come back, right? Yeah. In daily mode, bad day is gone.
Yeah, unless your bad day is Chris Gayle scoring 175, you can come back. Otherwise, you can't come back. So, as far as dead matches are concerned, right, there's an inverse relationship because the tournament at the end only all these dead rubber matches come up, right? Because in the beginning everybody has a chance, but in fantasy it's the opposite, right? Like the spots become very, very, very tight towards the end. So, taking this year's example, if let's say a Punjab and a Rajasthan play and the outcome is not very consequential, but it is very consequential for the people who are playing it. And because it's very tight at the end, it's going to be like 200 points differentiating the top 4. Then you are, and at that point in time, I have to say, as Gaurav was mentioning, in tournament mode, the variations come into play. In a daily fantasy mode, you don't have, because only 22 players, you pick 11, right? But in tournament mode, what happens is, let's say you pick Harshal Patel early in the tournament before everybody does. So you have the first mover advantage. The differentiation is there. But as Harshal Patel starts taking wickets, let's say 15 wickets, then everybody picks him and the net result is 0 because you have Harshal Patel now and I have Harshal Patel now. But the benefit of picking him early, I get the points for the first 15 wickets that he takes, and that nobody can take away from me. So those are the things, those differentiations and how you make your choices, that actually matters in the end. In the end, mostly when everybody, now you know who's going to hit, because at match 14, you know Ruturaj Gaikwad is going to hit. I know Gaurav didn't pick him, condolences, but seriously, but everybody then picks Ruturaj Gaikwad, right? Like everybody picks Harshal Patel, Avesh Khan. But who picks him first? That is the first mover advantage is very, very heavy in tournament mode.
Also, you spoke about this thing, right? The planning aspect of it, like Monday, if CSK plays Monday and Thursday, then you also are picking predominantly CSK players to bank on both the days and all that. So at that time, I'm also imagining you're following certain Twitter accounts or certain newspaper reports that are mentioning possible team injuries, like all those news items plays a big part in your decision, right?
Of course. Of course it does. And since we were conducting the league, these injuries and last minute additions to the team were a nightmare because we keep looking for when the squad is announced, who is going to replace who. And now there is a transfer window as well. So that again becomes a big nightmare because you assign in the back end, you assign a player to a team. That player can change to another team anytime. So that level of modification also you have to do. So those become a bigger nightmare for running the game. When I was running the game, I mean, this is a story that we used to tell ourselves that Mumbai, in one of those years, I don't know which year, but one of those years, they bought in this new bowler and they announced that he's playing in the 11, like 20 minutes just during the toss. That guy was Jasprit Bumrah, and we didn't know who Jasprit Bumrah was.
Oh, this was the very first season.
Yeah. He just generally came in and he was directly in the 11. What? Who's Jasprit Bumrah? What is his price? Does he also bat? Who knows? Just Jasprit Bumrah. Okay, scramble. The last minute scramble. Add him to the team. Add him to the roster. Tell people on Twitter, count down. Okay, we are adding him. You should be able to see him. You can pick him and not. So these are this is the last minute problems of injuries and changes between the roster that running the game, it was tougher than playing the game. Playing the game, you anyways read Cricinfo, Crickbuzz and other publications, and you have your feed for cricket news, so you get your news.
Yeah, in fact, I think there's increasingly there are all these accounts, aggregator accounts that post news from all these websites and all that. I mean, they are becoming so popular because of this also, because they are mentioning injury news and selection news and all that. I think, there's a reason why they are so big these days. It's also fantasy players are benefiting from them.
And also sometimes you can't wait till the last minute. What I usually do is I always submit the team before, just in case some tech problems happen or you're outside or so. There could be some work related commitment, something. So I always make sure I have a team, and if I'm available that time, I try to, and I see some major player not playing, and then you have to quickly change. But the problem happens that time is, especially in a tournament mode, is again, you won't have that time to see the schedule, see whether when are they playing again, how long is this guy out. And so you tend to lose out on all that. Those are some challenges. Whereas in other sports like for football and all, they announced 11 1 hour before. So it's a lot of time if you want to make any kind of changes and stuff. So I think that aspect needs to be looked at by developers also. There has to be some way by which you can have options where tech can kind of say that, hey, if this guy is not playing, automatically sub this person in and give points later or retrospectively, or have like 4 guys who are not part of the 11 but part of a 15-man squad, and if somebody doesn't play, just automatically sub in someone from there. So those things could actually help improve this kind of last minute scramble and stuff, because not all players in the league are available at the same time to actually make these changes. So,
and also for somebody like me who lives outside India, and the time zones are a big thing. In fact, the first time I played, every day to log on at that time in the morning, it was a challenge for me. And this is every day. Like NFL, I just have to do it on Saturday or Sunday because most of the matches are on Sunday. But here, every day you're playing, you're like, oh man, I don't know what is going on. So I automatically switched off from there. So I think it's important for them to keep in mind where people living everywhere in the world.
So one thing which recently we played a different kind of fantasy for the 100, and that was not, even though matches were daily, they started following the football format where you start playing for 5 or 6 days. So you pick a team for 5 or 6 days and then keep subbing in players. So that's again an investment of, say, in a tournament of 1 month, maybe it's 4 or 5 times you just have to invest time on that and do a good job of it. I think that's also a good model for those who can't invest time every single day. I think now we have so many different types of games catering to different sets of players. So I think more and more innovation. There's so much more scope for innovation. I don't know if we will be talking about it, but like player pricing, right? Ashoka spoke about player pricing, dynamic pricing, and all. The concept is not
we
even
did it
there
once. We did it once.
Yeah, most of the leagues don't even have dynamic pricing. It's a slightly complex thing, but it's very important to have that. I feel like he said, no, if I pick Harshal Patel first, I need to have that advantage so that others have to pick him at a much bigger price. And that's all that is very common in the West in terms of football and NFL. I'm pretty sure might have something like that. So dynamic pricing is something which I am expecting, and I want more people to bring in. That's not really possible in a daily game, I would think, because
it's not really, you need context, otherwise
it's not really possible. So those things, a lot more improvements are there, but again, how many people are playing tournament mode, we don't know. So maybe does it make business sense? Ashoka be a better person to answer that.
No, I mean, tournament mode anyways were fair for diehards and and for very, very hardcore cricket fans. So when we did all that, we were thinking about dynamic pricing. We actually implemented it one of the years, and we also did one thing where you were saying, Sidvi, that people in different time zones. So what we did was flexible subbing, which is you can put as many. So we brought in a draft space where you can do as many changes as you want, but the amount of subs that you make will be finally calculated at the end based on your prior squad and this squad. We try to address all this, but as Gaurav says, we are moving towards a stage where Virendra Sehwag is coming on TV and says, will the next ball be a 4 or 6? Click 4 or click 6. So that is not, something that companies decide on their own. That is something that they're getting from the market. The market, as you want to reach a larger and larger market, as these pay-for-money games do, you want to simplify your game, but also keep the definition of game of skill alive. Otherwise, if you say what will happen the next ball or whatnot, right? I would think that is a game of chance, but Indian courts say that is still a game of skill, because you have to know cricket, you have to know the laws of cricket, you have to know what a boundary is. It's not a toss of a coin, is what the courts say. But I mean, that's the direction all of the companies are going, because that's how the market is signaling to them. Tournament modes, I think in India, there will be around 150,000 people playing it, if that, or 200,000 people playing it. At the end, hardcore from the beginning till the end. So that's a very small market. I mean, why would you want to waste your innovations on that? You can always, put it in the daily fantasy sports.
Yeah, but even in the daily, the innovations can happen, right? Like, not that much, but not that much. Yeah.
But you can't do the dynamic pricing, right? Like, because every day you come and select Kohli, you come and select AB, and then that's it. Everybody has Kohli AB, and everybody makes 20 teams. So there is no variations. It's a little bit boring. That's the only problem.
We have seen some innovations in daily gamers have a separate captain for second innings, have a separate captain for first innings. Some companies have started doing that. That way, you can see the first innings and change your mind, and then see, hey, I think this guy might perform better, so let's change my captain, which is decent. But again, it requires you to invest that time in that 10-minute window and quickly change, which is the whole purpose, which is what people want to do. And as long as your tech is smooth, and as long as that's a big role, how you productize the whole thing, how easy it is, how smooth it is to make changes, how easy it is to pick all these in that 5 minutes gap. How can I see all the information in one page? I think we're still a long way behind there. In other sports, you have dedicated websites. You have a Cricinfo for fantasy itself. If you understand what I mean, the people have that as their homepage. They daily see all your injury, all your news details. I know my brother's in the US. He plays NFL. He always goes to the fantasy site first before going to the actual NFL site. So I think we have this so much more scope. There's no one stop. Today, everybody is writing fantasy articles, and everywhere there's, at the end of the day, you're still saying the same thing. I think Kohli is likely to perform, and then there's, out of 14 games, he is going to perform once or twice. So it's a lot. Sometimes people simplify it too much. I feel it's not that simple, and they have to give it. There has to be an expert in that, and there has to be websites which are like big time experts doing this, but the number of matches make it very, very hard to actually achieve that as well. There's just so much cricket now happening. Every day there's a T20, so you can't do justice to it as well.
Yeah. So this is why we were also thinking when I was running fantasy that the IPL they should just give 6 months to IPL. The rest of the 6 months you do your World Test Championship, but 6 months, forget all this BBL, CPL and all that. Just don't even call IPL. Call it the T20 League of Nations or whatnot. I don't care what it is, but just have one tournament for 6 months and let it run. I mean, what that does is actually, it unifies your viewer base. I mean, if ICC can do that, but I don't think these are ideas that are even viable commercially. BCCI will just say, what are you talking about? So, but that is something that they can look at a tournament that runs at least 6 to 8 months, like the big leagues in other sports.
I mean, I won't be surprised if it moves in that direction, say in another 5 to 10 years or so, given the popularity of what is happening. But, but I anticipate it as like a parallel thing. Like, the T20 league will be happening and the test things will be happening. So you will have bifurcation of teams and people have to choose eventually what they want to play. And that the players will decide. Some may go depending on their skills and in whatever the incentives they are going for. Yeah, that could happen. But yeah, you just Gaurav brought about this point about how everyone seems to be writing the similar things, and you will say like normal, like cliched stuff, right? Like Kohli will score, Gayle will score. Yeah, that everyone knows they will score. But take us a little more, in depth about it. Like, what are the things? I mean, obviously, you having an idea of venues, match conditions. Like, for instance, IPL second season happened in UAE, Sharjah. So you will be picking a totally different sort of taking an approach that is different from if it was in India. That kind of approach. Plus, general like approach of form, players' form dipping, going down. You tend to have an idea of when a player is about to peak. Those, talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so there are some kind of rules which I follow personally, and like some of those you have mentioned. I think picking players, especially in T20, has to be from the top three. Most of your team has to be from your top three, and opening and death bowlers, because those are the chances of where the wickets come. Chances of getting most of your wickets are, and form is a very tricky thing. So in the IPL, one thing I've noticed is generally those who strike well early on generally tend to continue. Very rarely within the season you'll see someone doing very well first 7 matches and then doing very poorly later. So for Sanju Samson, for example, you have to pick him first 2 games and then drop him immediately. But mostly if you see or KL Rahul standard pick, he's going to perform. So form, especially in most of these leagues, is very hard to determine. And it never happens also that suddenly somebody performs in the last 2 games alone. Like a Watson of 2019 for Chennai is a very rare case. You wouldn't see that happening too often, just coming in and playing in a big match and win 2 out of 17 games performing and going is something very rare. But venues, pitches, batting first, bowling first, those things matter quite a lot. And again, there are certain players who are very uncomfortable against certain teams, certain style of play. Like Deepak Chahar. If there one thing I look at is, will there be swing? If there's no swing, Deepak Chahar, like in the second leg of this IPL, he didn't really perform well because there was zero swing. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. The moment that there's some swing, there are certain grounds. Wankhede, for example, it swings a lot. So that's a place where you can definitely go and pick your fast bowlers. And Wankhede is going to have a lot of dew. So picking spinners is always a risk. So these are things, like I said, these are slightly more nuanced, and these are slightly people need to have a good reading of the game. People need to understand that, hey, this guy's role is called the anchor, so there's a good chance he'll play through the inning. So let's bank on him. Let's not pick the high-risk players. The Russells and Narens and Pollards are great to have, but they're not going to give you consistent points every single game, because that's going to be the odd. Their game is such that there's always the chance of them failing. We all know that Pollard plays well against CSK because that's the kind of attack he feasts on. Then you need to pick Pollard against Chennai. Doesn't mean they'll perform and they're going to get points, but that's a logical way of doing it. You're not going to have any regrets randomly picking players. Similarly, who are the players who are going to get games for sure? 14 games, 15 games. There are some players who are going to be on and off. So it's better you don't pick them. You know that there might be a good time they might swap an Indian fast bowler, for example. So you don't pick those players. And Manish Pandey is another example, right? You want to pick him because he's a top order player, but from a fantasy perspective, data says that in 5 years, he's going to score at 150, maybe maximum 2 times. So you don't pick Manish Pandey. Who are the guys who are capable of giving you those points with respect to strike rate, or with respect to scoring 50s and 75s, or with respect to getting death over wickets? I know that, like Ashoka said, somebody who will get you 2 wickets every game. Rashid Khan does that. But whether you want 2 or whether you want to go behind. So what I do is sometimes I pick the guy who's likely to bowl with Rashid Khan. I try to see that because I know that they're going to play him out and they're going to attack the other bowler, and there's a chance that guy might get wickets. So these are some things which sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I try to keep sticking to these theories because it helps. No point picking a Russell because sometimes he won't even get batting. Rishabh Pant again, batting at number 5, 10 balls, 20 balls. How much can he do? So every team you pick both your openers and pick both. A lot of fantasy players pick only one. They don't pick both. Sometimes best is to pick both because you know that one person is likely to surely succeed. So you're actually giving away points of one player, hoping that the other one succeeds. So that's a different strategy. So I picked Rahul and Mayank. I picked Shaw and Dhawan. I know that very rarely you'll have 100 run opening stance, but at least I know that one guy is performing. So you're literally saying that, hey, one guy is surely going to fail. I'm going to pick him, but it's okay. I'll try to maximize that. And then captain, vice captain becomes very important there. I think that is luck. I don't think you can, there's no skill for that. Out of the 2 people, you pick one, bank on that guy. Maybe law of averages is something in the IPL, especially, it doesn't work. If guys hit, they continue to keep hitting. So you shouldn't move away from the fact that after 3 games, he might fail. But one thing which is slightly, it's a counter to Ashoka's strategy, which I'm slowly which this year I tried to adopt, is if somebody plays 3 games in 4 or 5 days, yes, logically you would think to have more of those players. But what I've realized is that the same player may not have 3 consecutive good days also. So what I do is I try to remove him and bring somebody else who I think could perform for the next Chennai game. And I don't think of conserving that sub because what happens is if he's playing on Sunday and he's playing on Tuesday, because of that one guy, I'm not able to bring a good player on Monday. Say if I have a high price player in Kohli or Shikhar Dhawan who plays Sunday and Tuesday, and I want to bring in, say, Faf for Monday, because I have Dhawan, I just tell myself, okay, no point keeping. Tomorrow I'll make up that point. And then I realize that day he scores 75 and I lose out on. So nowadays I've started playing for that particular day. That's it. You just plan for that day, play and move on. So these are all trial and errors, Sid. There's no right method to this. But it's not just go and pick 11 players and hope that you win. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. There is a lot of detailing, lot of things. And you also have to see what other players are doing in your league. Just if one player I know is surely banking on Shikhar Dhawan, if you keep picking Shikhar Dhawan, there's no use. Your position is going to be exactly the same. So you have to either differentiate in captain or differentiate in players. Yeah. And differentiating in captain is always a risk because the same guys keep performing. So you're only going to lose out. So I try to bridge the gap slowly. I try to keep the same players and maybe 1 or 2 players who I think might score high points. I try to differentiate. Sometimes it works, sometimes but there's a lot more to this than just picking 11 players.
Let me add a layer to where Cow left off. Let me pick from there, because looking at conditions, looking at players, looking at matchups, that is one layer. The second thing is your team, and you have two constraints there. One is your budget, and the second is the number of subs that you have, which is substitutions that you can do. So these are two constraints that you're always working with. And the third is, let me add one more. The third is your position in your league, right? If you quickly go up, let's say you're in the top 2-3, always try to be, make sure that the people behind you can't catch up with you by making the same things that they do. Keep the squad 80% similar to theirs, because whatever points they get, you also get, right? And in that 20% is where you can, leave it to chance. That way, you never have to worry about someone behind you catching you up. So that is one thing I do. And the other two things that I said, like the subs and your budget, with respect to that, Gao hit the nail on the head, because there is no law of averages in IPL. Like if you remember this one guy called Sreenath Aravind, right? If I remember, for that one season, he kept picking wickets till the end, right? He didn't stop becoming potent midway or whatnot. So for that IPL, you can keep a place for Sreenath Aravind in your squad and never remove him, irrespective of whether RCB plays that day or not. He's a very cheaply priced player, like at 75 or 80k, because he has no international experience at that point. His price will be low. Keep him in the squad and then forget about him. This year, if I want to pick somebody, I'll pick Arshdeep Singh. He was under the radar. Most people won't pick him. You just pick him and keep him in your 11 and then forget about it. He'll keep giving you wickets. And that one Punjab match where you have no substitutions to spare, you can say, at least I have Arshdeep Singh. Make him batting star also, make him bowling star also, and keep it. Batting is not going to give you much, but bowling he'll give points. And those are things that you think outside of cricket with respect to your squad, with respect to your league, positioning and all that. So yeah, it is. We make it sound difficult because it is difficult. It is not simple. and on top of all this, there is a lot of luck involved also, because after all these calculations, your rank in the overall league of people playing in a platform might be 1,000. Like in your league, you may be top among your friends. But in the league, in overall, if you see, your rank will be 1,500. And you would have made 10,000 calculations from match 1 till match 60. So this is what I'm saying. There is a lot of luck involved, but that doesn't mean you can blindly pick 11 people and then say, I'll get points. Some days you'll do, but most of the days you won't.
And then there's a risk of overthinking also, as Gaurav said.
Yeah. And the other thing is, there's another strategy, which I've also tried that as well. Sometimes you just pick one player who is a very, very low price. He may not even play games, but he must be the cheapest player that platform allows you to play, because that gives you room to have two Shikhar Dhawans, two Kohlis type players, right? So that works quite a bit well. So you're effectively playing like CSK of 2008 to 2021 with 10 players only and not 11. You have one player who just goes in and goes out whenever required. They usually used to play with 10 players. That also works quite a bit, where you try to get all your superstars in. Otherwise, it's very hard to fit in a Kohli, an ABD, and a Maxwell in a team.
I had that problem in 2016, man, when Kohli, ABD, Shane Watson and Gayle were in the team. So my entire batting order was jammed up and I couldn't drop any of those because they were taking turns to score and take wickets. I was like, what the hell can we do? You have to manage your other matches. This team was going to blast off. And typically, like RCB, they failed in the final. So, yeah, continue. Sorry, I just remembered that one terrible situation.
Yeah. So there are a lot of different strategies you can use. Different people use different uppers. Some people start very fast. Some people use most of their 50-60% of their subs within the first 30-40 games. Some people use all their subs towards the end and catch up. So there are multiple strategies which work for different people. But at the end of the day, look, you need to be serious about it. You need to have fun and you need to kind of maintain a balance between your personal bias and you're actually trying to win something. So to be a I would say that from all my experience, I can say I'm a consistent top 5 player. But I'm not a player who always wins. In fact, I win very rarely. Very rarely. One league in maybe 4 5 years only I win. But I can say I always finish in 3 4 in a 15 if 15 people are playing. And yeah, you just got to live with that.
And at the end of the game, like this just adds another layer to it, right? Like I can imagine, like before this, or if you're not playing this, the degree of elation or the degree of heartbreak that you have is vastly different from when you have this layer also going on. Because okay, suppose your team has lost a really close game, it's a big heartbreak. But suppose you have won in fantasy, then it's a compensation, right? It's a bit like, okay, at least something good came out of it.
Okay, I'll tell you the truth. If your team is lost and you win in fantasy, you're happy. You're not. I mean, people may say whatever they want to say, but you are really happy that day.
I told you, right? I do that for CSK. Right? That's what I do, and I fail more often than not in fantasy. But it's just a belief that, hey, if I pick a CSK player, it's likely to flop, so let's not pick him and let our team win. So at the end of a CSK match, I'm always satisfied.
Yeah, you bet against your hopes. That is a good strategy to have anyway for any kind of contest.
Let me just add two more examples to that. Like 2016 Pakistan versus India. I mean, I was happy when the match ended because I had almost won the league. I ended up second, but still, that was a better result.
Which the Champions Trophy final, 2000.
Yeah. Pakistan versus India. So that, and the second thing is the 2011 World Cup, because it was such a historic World Cup. Everybody, I mean, we were emotional towards the end. It was overwhelming in the finals, but all through that I was miserable because I never picked Yuvraj because I didn't think that he will do well. And in that first match against Bangladesh, Sehwag and Kohli hit hundreds. Sehwag goes on to hit 170 or whatnot. I picked Gambhir and Tendulkar, right? Everybody picks Sehwag and Kohli. I picked. So I was miserable all through that World Cup, and that is the correlation. I mean, you may say that playing fantasy cricket slightly disconnects you from the experiences of other fans. You have your own separate thing running in the background and with your friends as well. And that is a weird feeling, actually. You are interested in dead rubbers. You cheer for players which you normally won't cheer. You are put in delicate positions where you want Kohli to get out. But you can't say that out loud. Because everybody in your league has...
Then you'll be anti-national.
You should go one step further saying Kohli should get out for this score at this time so that my player will have enough balls to face. Yeah. And then come out. How much people have said, hey, I wish this guy gets out fast. When will Russell get a chance? When will Russell... he's my captain. Bloody, he's got only 5 balls, 6 balls. It's crazy what fantasy makes you think.
Yeah, it gives you a very, very different experience as a fan than I think just following cricket. As is.
Does it remove a lot of remove a bit of the tribalism? Like I'm imagining, like if a person is doing fantasy and is getting that view of the game as well, the chances of you going and burning an effigy and all are quite less, right? Because you're actually seeing two sides of the story.
Yeah, but it does remove all that tribalism because you're cheering for your own team.
You're in some other world.
Yeah, you will have unique access to grind. I mean, the world will be saying, what man, India did this like this. I mean, they should have scored this and that. For me, the problem would be Fakhar Zaman didn't make 100. He would have been out in the 90s. I would have a unique problem altogether. That is the problem of fantasy cricket. Like it detaches you from a reality into a in a space where you are a tribe of one because you are following a team which doesn't exist anywhere other than this one space. Right. And you are competing against people who also have fake teams. And that kind of a construct is a very unique construct. I mean, where it really helps is it helps you see cricket in a little bit. I mean, it reduces bias to a great extent. Right. And it helps you see games from a very third person point of view, because you are not belonging to any two teams anymore. You are literally the third person in that room, supporting a third team, which is yours. So that is the greatest advantage of fantasy games, as I would say. I mean, especially tournament modes.
So in terms of the picking of the squads itself, just curious, is it quite skewed towards, all-rounders and multidimensional players? I'm imagining, Hardik, Jadeja, Sunil Narayan, as we discussed. Those guys are key. Or is it, as you said, is it the top two that makes ultimately the big difference? Or what are the sort of the big preferences and the big players, if you can name even like a few gold mines that you can have?
I'll just put one more caveat before that, because most platforms have these rules of playing 11s, like how many people from a team you can pick and what amount of each skills that you can pick. Some, they make it very explicit, saying you can have 4 batsmen, 4 bowler, 1 keeper, and two all-rounders, something like that. They make it very explicit. While we were running fantasy, we had this can bat, can bowl, can keep thing, which we only specified minimums, which means that you can pick a lot of all-rounders, a very few batsmen and very few bowlers. I mean, we didn't want to inhibit a player's strategy. He can pick wherever and how much ever players that he want of whichever skills. So it depends on that. And now coming to your question, of course, yes, all-rounders will give you the maximum ROI. As I said, Callis, he didn't have a stellar... Nobody will remember Callis's IPL as compared to his international stint. But fantasy players, he was like God. If Callis was playing, just pick Callis. If Yusuf Pathan was playing, pick Yusuf Pathan. So those are people who have multidimensional skills. And as you said, Hardik was a valuable player before this 2021, right? Like now... if he doesn't bowl, then he doesn't make sense at that price. You just drop him. Maybe, yeah, and Sunil Narayan. He is a very recent example I can think of. When KKR started giving him the number 3 or opening role. Did they put him in opening? They put him at number 3, right?
Yeah, opening.
Opening, okay. When they gave him the opening role, he kind of became the de facto choice, right? Even if he makes some 25 of 10 balls, that's great ROI for him. So those are kind of some of the choices that we make. And you wanted gold-plated names. I mean, everybody who has cut their teeth and had a great season in IPL is actually a gold-plated name. There are no surprises. The few surprises are people like Rajat Bhatia, the people like Sreenath Aravind for that one season, who, in this season you have Harshal Patel, Avesh Khan, Arshdeep Singh, and Rituraj Gaikwad. So these are seasonal flavors. The permanent flavors is Chris Gayle. If he's playing 14 games, pick Chris Gayle for 14 games. There's no second thought about it. If David Warner is playing 14 games, play David Warner. I am ambivalent about Kohli. He picks Kohli, but I don't pick Kohli. I pick ABD because the highs of ABD are like crazy highs. He'll get you a 70 of 20 balls. Very, very. That happens frequently also. But Kohli's 50 or 40 balls still make lesser points for me. I can always catch it up with another 50 of an opposing team player. That 2016 was the anomaly, and that year I suffered because I generally don't pick Kohli for T20. So 2016 I suffered, but otherwise, anyways, I don't. The rest of the players are very self-explanatory.
I think one name he's missed out was a very, very good fantasy player name, as in who used to get a lot of points, was Shane Watson. From 2008 to 2015, standard, opening the bat, bowling 4 overs. He'll give you very bankable. Shane Watson was always there whenever he was available. Watson gave a lot of points. And Maxwell was always, again, an enigma, even for fantasy players. You pick him, but never gets you points. So, this year, once he started hitting, it made sense to pick him. But yeah, I think Watson and Yusuf Pathan in my early days were very, very good fantasy players.
Sean Marsh also, right? First year,
Sean Marsh. And then Raina is another consistent player. Yeah. We should not forget him because he's had 2 bad seasons, but yeah, of course, Raina was a great pick as well.
And from an Indian context, you mentioned Rajat Bhatia as somebody who can park safely. There's other player that people talk about was Shahbaz Nadeem, right? They used to pick him to just like as a safe bet. Did you pick him?
Shahbaz Nadeem, more than Shahbaz Nadeem, Amit Mishra. Amit Mishra is a low under the radar pick that you can always bank, but because the way we used to price Amit Mishra, because he had international experience, he was a slightly costlier player as compared to someone like Rajat Bhatia. So Amit Mishra is another one. He's an IPL legend as well. So who else am I missing here? Malinga is a surefire pick that you pick on any given day.
Because he would get a maiden also sometimes, right?
Yeah. Sometimes he used to.
And the other thing we haven't mentioned, some gameplays have only 4 overseas you can pick there also. So that's another very, very tricky element. You need to plan your substitutions and all for that. And play, like, you can't remove, if you have to remove an Indian, you can't bring in an overseas and have 5 overseas. All that is all strategy. So you have to have 7 Indian players, means you have to figure out a way to remove your, and 4 overseas will be costly overseas. So sometimes or cheaper overseas, your Indian player might be costly. So budget constraints, you can't pick in ABD players. There's a lot of planning, and there's some people who don't do all that, play aram se and win also. But I would say that, consistently to win is not that straightforward.
So just curious, every season, how many teams do you guys create? Is it multiple, or do you play just one?
If it's tournament, I just do one.
Okay.
It's one team, right? Yeah. I mean, tournament mode, you can't
play 2 and all.
You'll go mad.
That'll be too much.
Yeah. I used to have multiple teams just because we were running the fantasy league. So I needed test accounts to check if some certain features that we were rolling out works or not. But even then, those things, as long as the features are rolled out, only then I used to go and check it. I used to have my main account where I played my leagues, but other things were just for testing. So you can't. Actually, this is very crazy. I mean, if you have 2 teams, you will go mad.
Yeah. So, Gaurav, given that your strength is, with stats and cricket numbers, I would think that this is like a great avenue to mainstream more of the stats that you guys are working on, right? Like before the show, you spoke about the new feature AskCricinfo and how, it's really helping a lot of fantasy players because you have these new answers that you can get that you were not able to get before. Ashoka spoke about how, Stats Guru was a major part of him initially when he was playing it. And I'm sure there are, stats is, of course, like an ocean. I mean, there's a limitless possibilities for cricket to get into stats. So this could be one great way to mainstream a lot of the stats, right?
Absolutely. You bang on there. The fact that today stats are still mainstream only for tests and ODIs, and people follow only the main set of matches and they follow their own heroes and their players, their stats, etc. People don't know what's available actually in public and all. So for a long time, obviously, with the advent of T20 and a number of matches being played, just too many matches and too much data was there. It required someone to kind of put everything together at one single place. StatsGuru did that for other formats, but not for T20s, because again, the volume of games were so many, and to get that data from all over the world, put it together, and then make sure that there are no mistakes, and then making it to the public is not a straightforward task. So slowly we are getting there, and AskCricinfo is just one tool now where you can quickly just go search for whatever things we discussed, right? How many times the team has won chasing? How many times has Rashid Khan got out to has dismissed Virat Kohli? How many times is Virat Kohli scored on May 2nd? Sorry, was that Suresh Raina? How many times Suresh Raina scored on May 2nd? These kind of things, you can kind of get it quickly, right? And that really helps. So when you have a 7 to 7:30 window, even StatsGuru is much harder. You have to filter so many things. You have to wait for it to work. Here, text-based search and just getting the answer like Google search, right, is a great step forward in that direction. We still have a long way to go because cricket itself leads to so much complex stats. It's very, very hard to get here itself. I think is a big achievement because it's so complex. There's so many permutations, combinations, and people can ask for anything. Today, people just ask people might even ask who's likely to score more points today in fantasy. So that could be an AskCricinfo question, which without people even knowing how the tool works. So that's how we have to cater to so many different audiences, right? Again, these stats need to be vernacular as well. People need to understand and ask questions in different languages. There's so much scope for all this. But for the start, I think getting access to in-depth information is good, is basic. And like Ashoka said, he maybe had to go open 25 tabs between 7 to 7:30. Now that can reduce to say 10. Slowly it'll reduce down to 5, and then finally we'll have one single Google kind of tool, which is what Ask Cricinfo's whole purpose is. But it's not that easy. It's very complex. Hopefully we do get there in maybe a couple of years' time, and then it becomes a one-stop shop for fantasy stats. Like I said, next we need a one-stop shop for fantasy articles, injuries, and other thing, and it becomes an industry by itself.
Right.
Yeah, talk about.
Will fans ask Valimai update from?
Good you told me that. I need to check our database logs and see if somebody's really asked for that. We should have some fun answers.
No, what I'm saying is still a lot of the cricketing discourse in the sort of the layman level is still at the averages, strike rates, that sort of zone, and of course people like Gaurav and quite a few other companies, CricViz and other companies are trying to are doing a lot of work on putting out new metrics, on talking about new ways to think about cricket. What actually, how to value a player, how to value a performance, etc. And I think, if somebody plays fantasy cricket and is actually serious into it, then their chances of getting through this metrics are, much higher. Because personally for me, as I said with NFL, I've begun to take deep interest in the run defenses and the pass defenses and those kind of quite intricate stats, which I didn't really need to know when I was just watching the game. So this is the kind of great avenue for sort of the niche stats to also come to the fore.
See, yes and no. The reason being that niche audience is too less. Does it make business sense for it to do such a thing? And again, like Ashoka alluded earlier to in the show, it's just 2 months, Sid. So do you invest so much? For 2 months is where you have the maximum traffic. I'm not saying that BBL, CPL, yes, all those leagues have fantasy cricket. You can play, but would you have the same kind of audience, same kind of traction? I don't think so. And a lot of people don't have the knowledge of those kind of players as well. So to do all this and to actually make it mainstream requires there to be a market. And what we have seen so far, it's a very niche audience. It's just 2 months. People are playing even the daily game. If you take, we're dealing with like the people at all classes who are actually playing fantasy. I know there was my outside our Bombay studio, whenever I used to walk in, there used to be a security guard, and every day he used to see and pick players. He used to ask me, who do I pick, sir, for my Dream 11 daily game? Will this guy perform today? As if it becomes like an astrologer, as if I'm an astrologer and he's asking me, hey, I'm not. And when there's money involved, you don't want to be also randomly giving gyan also, right? So
tell him May to Reina will perform. Other days I don't know, but
so which is why I think you have different audiences also to cater to. So these kind of numbers, what you say, even if I keep it, nobody's going to understand. And explaining cricket stats is very hard. It's so hard in 280 characters today. I don't expect to do it much shorter also. So if I have to tell someone how a particular algorithm works, I need to sit with them. We need to brainstorm situations. And even Cricinfo has our own version of Smart Stats, which we have not done enough with, because it's very hard to explain that in text. If I sit with Ashoka one whole day and explain to him what he gives me situations, and then I kind of prove it to him, maybe he will buy into it. But similarly, doing that for fantasy, if I just give a random number, say this guy's impact is 2.35. And just because of that, I'm going to pick, nobody cares, right? So people want so that's why I think we're far away from that. And the fact that it's a 2-month league, I still stick to my basic principles of all that, of what we discussed about which position he bats, how many balls he gets. So that's the reality. As much as I am a numbers guy and I want all these things to happen, it's the fact of the matter, I believe personally, we are still way far away from that. And to explain this to fans is, again, communicating the data is hard. So, and building something for just that small 1% audience is not, I don't think it's worth the effort. But like I said, if the fantasy industry becomes, if I have a Cricinfo equivalent of fantasy, the website like that, where I have everything in one stop and I find it useful 365 days a year, then it makes sense. Otherwise, I don't see it making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it has to be driven by TV also, because the moment TV starts getting into it, then things become much more popular, and then people start taking an interest, and then they may come to Cricinfo or some other place and get it. I think the trickle down will happen from there.
Correct.
Eventually. Yeah, that's true. So, I think this has been really good. Just to finish off, if there's any particular days or players or something that come to mind of your most memorable wins or your most disappointing losses, like suppose something changed in the middle of the game. I mean, I'm thinking like a Rahul Tewatia coming and hammering everyone, and then somebody who has him is suddenly like at the top of that league or something, something like that. Any memories would be great.
One thing I still remember is I had McCallum for the first game of IPL.
Oh, wow.
2008. He was my captain. So that is a special moment because nobody knew what IPL was and what's going to happen. And suddenly at the end of the day, I am at 8:45 and there was one more guy who had McCallum and he was at some 8:33 or something. And the others were all languishing below. But then because it's a long league, like you said, people can come back. But that I felt very good that, hey, first day, what a start to fantasy cricket. And that was like very, very good fun. And I was lucky to have for Gayle 175 also. So so there are more bad days than good days. So let me stick and stop with the good days and finish it. The bad days are there every other day. Like I told you, pick a player, captain him, first ball, he gets out, that's it, done. You're just so distraught.
Go, that one day you didn't pick Kohli, yeah? You picked McCallum as captain.
Boss, in 2016, I think Kohli and AB make hundreds both in the same match.
Gujarat Lions, no.
Gujarat. Yeah, I think I had Shivil Kaushik as bowling captain at that day.
Was a burn.
That is a burn. So I don't say that. I just tell people, I had Gayle on that day. I had Yusuf Pathan on other days. But not having Kohli and AB and having Shivil Kaushik as bowling captain, oh God. But it's confirmation bias, right? Like you only remember things that you did right. There are 100,000 things that you did not do right. Those are high and low points. I mean, my high point is probably also one game in 2010 when CSK make 245 against RR. I think Murli Vijay, nobody picks Murli Vijay as batting captain in fantasy. For some reason, I did it. Some astrology, some psychology, I don't know what. But he scored 120 odd that day. And the icing on the cake was, I was forced to pick Naman Oja as wicketkeeper also on that day, and he made a 90. So that was like a Diwali come early for me on that day. So that is the unexpected pick. Yusuf Pathan before his 100, he was not that big of an entity. So that is an unexpected pick. I mean, Gayle 175. By that time, if you are not picking Gayle, like our good friend Arvind Desai, who came on this podcast, he picked Mitchell Marsh on that day. So he deserves everything that you get if you're not picking Gayle by that time. He was a force he was a force.
Probably went on Twitter and said today is Mitchell Marsh day also.
Yeah, something like that he would have said.
But talking to two CSK fans, and we have mentioned every other name but Dhoni. I mean, how is Dhoni as a fantasy pick? How has he been over the years?
I don't think he's a good fantasy pick at all. I don't think so. He's a good theater while watching. But as a fantasy pick, especially in the context of IPL, I don't think I don't think he gets to come and bat as frequently. And as Gaurav was saying earlier, you pick the top 3, 1, 2, 3. And so even if he comes and scores 28 of 10 or 28 of 20, 28 of 10. Let's remember the good days. So 28 of 10. So what happens is the price point of Dhoni, right? He doesn't come as a 70,000 or 50,000 player. He comes as a 100,000 player. And for that price, you don't get a good ROI from Dhoni. And that is the simple reason. There is no Dhoni hate or whatever. He just doesn't get to bat that often. And it's a function of that team. Let's say a middle order when Rohit Sharma was batting for Deccan Chargers, right? He was a middle order bat, I think. At that time, he was not an opener. But he was a good ROI because at that year, Deccan Chargers didn't do well and batting eventually used to come to Rohit Sharma. So it depends on which franchise you're part of. Dhoni for CSK is not a good pick in fantasy. Maybe Dhoni for India. I don't know. I have not tried that as well. Simply because of the same reason. The batting order is so strong. By the time he comes, I don't think there is much for him to do.
And the other fact which I want to add is about Dhoni being a keeper. And most keepers are openers. Barring Dhoni and Dinesh Karthik, if you see, mostly keepers are openers. Josh Butler and even the current Sanju Samson bats up. Rishabh Pant bats at 4. KL Rahul bats. So those are the standard keepers we keep. And usually if you pick KL Rahul, he's there for 56 days. He doesn't change, or whatever, 56 matches. He doesn't change. We don't remove him too much. So that again is a problem. So price point and the fact that he's a keeper and they're better keeper batters who can get you more points. Yeah, I've hardly picked Dhoni.
But I know people who do pick Dhoni, they don't win at fantasy. That's all. I mean, your love blinds you from winning. That's all.
Yeah. That brings us to the original point about being dispassionate about fantasy and removing it from your regular fandom, which is a different thing altogether. Yeah.
Yes, but it'll give you new good fan movements as well. The people that you pick, they slightly start becoming very fond of you because at the right time they'll come into your squad. And then, I'm a big fan of Sreenath Aravind because in one season he saved me, and nobody now he's not in popular conversations at all. I think he retired also, right? Like
he retired recently, and but he's on Twitter. You can message him and say thank you. You can give him a
thank you for those 23 wickets. They saved my season.
and the opposite we never spoke about. There's some players whom I'll never pick. Like, I don't know. I just even if I know he's going to score, I don't rate Marcus Stoinis very high. So I'd never pick him. He did very well last season. But generally there's some players I will never pick, irrespective of what. I would never think of picking certain players.
Who's this Australian all-rounder? I forget his name.
Moises Hendricks.
Moises Hendricks, yes. That is another person, because
you tell me I'll win also, I won't pick some players. It's like that. I don't know. There's some people who do that. I never expect somebody like that player to get Kedar Jadhav. I'll never usually pick because he bats. He's just a batter who bats down the order. He never used to bowl. So there's and there's people who used to pick him and get points and all. So crazy things happen in fantasy, but at least
I'll tell you another dirty secret. I don't pick Bumrah in IPL because against stats. I have this belief that he doesn't get you that amount of points that other person because I think he has had a singular IPL in 2020 and 19, right? Where he topped the chart somewhere, 30 wickets somewhere. I don't remember the year.
2020 he was second highest.
Yeah, second highest. But another year he was 30 wickets. But for me, a bowler with a lower price point who gets 18 to 20 wickets is better than I love watching Bumrah bowl, but I will not pick Bumrah because it's too costly for me. I may even pick Rashid Khan or Sunil Narine, but pace bowlers, I have very little faith in IPL.
What about Bravo? You would pick Bravo?
Bravo, surely, yeah.
Yeah, safe, right? Batting, bowling, everything, yeah. And he'll bowl 4 overs. He may bat.
But not Pollard though. That's another problem because Rohit Sharma doesn't give Pollard that much of a bowling anyway for him to make a difference. And batting too, my theory with Pollard is he has some 3 to 4 matches in a season where he will come and utterly destroy. And out of those 4 matches, 2 will be against CSK. And we'll get pummeled because of Pollard. And that's about it. So his usefulness for me as a fantasy player is very less. But he's a legendary player, but very, very less utility for me.
Talking about tournament mode, do you guys think, or I don't know if there has been, is there the possibility of having a fantasy league through the World Test Championship?
You can do it.
That will be the purest form of tournament mode.
Actually, it is not that bad. Unless, the way to do it and not lose sanity is you have to have one lock-in before the test match. If you do, 5 days of substitution, 5 days worth of substitution, then obviously, anybody who plays through the entire thing is not going to end up, same.
First of all, if you play 2.5 years, you should win. That's all. That should be the last man standing. The guys who's just played all matches is the winner. 2.5 years and all is too long. You not even remember how you played 2 years before. I don't know. I'm not for that.
Come on, man. As a tournament mode purist, you should be all excited about this. The true test of character.
Maybe you should start a game. I will see how many people sign up for it. There'll be a random game in the middle where there'll be an England-New Zealand game where we try to put a team. Then they'll say it's not even part of the World Test Championship.
Yeah, that's true. And then given the COVID situation now, it's better not to go for so long also. We never know when a series will start and when it will end. So, yeah. Okay, perfect. So, on that note of a wishful thinking of a 2.5 year round tournament mode fantasy league, we will put an end to this podcast. Thank you so much, Gaurav, for joining us. And I'm sure we will invite you at some point of time to talk about other things, including, stats related stuff or cricket or CSK even. A lot of things to talk about. But thanks so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, guys. Good fun.
Yeah, good fun too.
So, thanks for listening. As usual, can download our podcast, listen to it on any app. Please review it, rate it, contribute, as I said, on ko-fi.com/81allout. Tell people about it. There are 100 plus episodes that you can listen to on 81allout.com. You can follow us on Twitter at 81allout. And please send us your feedback. We are grateful that a lot of you reach out to us on various forums. And, if you want to leave a comment on the website or send a tweet, or if you have an idea for a future episode, more than happy to listen to what you have to say.
He'll come back for the second. India have won the test match. India have won the series. They're going to get back for two. India home. Lords go